A very good evening, good morning for the folks who are from US and for the folks who are from India. So this session is about Oracle Weblogic 12c, which is core entity of the Oracle Fusion Middleware products. This is about, just hold on a second. We will discuss about what Weblogic is, how it is a leading application server, into the market, what all features it offers to us, and where it lies when we talk about in terms of distributed systems, how it competes with other application servers leading into the market. So before moving ahead and starting specific things about Weblogic, I just want you to understand the distributed system, because without knowing that, I may not frame the architecture in your mind, why it is needed, what it is, how it works. Many things are there to discuss about. And in my every demo, I always start from here. The reason behind, if I just start looking at the technical terms, it won't be useful for you guys. So always I start with from the history, how it works, how it used to be, like what was the troubles and challenges there, and so that it maps a right image of the product and how you use it. Okay, so everyone knows like distributed system is nothing but it supports entire architecture. So it supports the entire architectures. Obviously, we are talking about, in older days, if you say client server architecture, other terms. Okay, right. So let's take an example through the UI things, so that it will help you to understand about the distributed system. Then we will come to like how Weblogic is participating into that distributed system, why it is so important for enterprises, why it is a leading brand into the market, right? Okay, so let's think about like you just hit some XYZ application, let's say Flipkart.com. Okay, obviously everyone knows like this is a website which is hosted somewhere, and when you visit any category of this website, obviously you are requesting a specific context of the application. Let's say if I say movement section and I say casual shoes, immediately you see that the application is changing the context root of this application. So would you ever tried thinking about what is happening behind the scene, when what is behind while you access this URL, right? So typically this is just an example that I'm giving you for your reference, but when it comes to an enterprise IT, enterprise architecture, the architecture would be looking like this. So you are here sitting, you are a user, and what you're trying to access, you are trying to access the Flipkart. Okay, then obviously this request will be reaching out to some data center of the Flipkart. Okay, so when it is reaching out this data center of the Flipkart owners, or the enterprise, so what would be the next thing that you feel that we can have there, right? So let's take this itself. So obviously, when application hits to an enterprise, we have many things behind the scene. I'm just giving you one example. So just consider it like it will very first hit the sort of the hardware load balancer or the software load balancer, depending like which level of organization it is and how it can afford in terms of money. Okay. So then they have this secondary node, Apache or the iPlanet or XYZ proxy server. So basically this acts as a reverse proxy or forward proxy, you can say, depending upon the architecture that they decide. Okay, then coming back to it, what will be our next layer? Our next layer will be the application server layer, or you can say where we will have our actual application deployed. Okay, so this layer is again, I should say, application server layer, and applications. I will explain like why I am drawing two boxes every time, because that is something to talk about high availability. Okay, then we have usually the database in the behind of the data center. So this is a very typical I should say the general architecture where I'm just considering I have this one application deployed. You can say I don't know exactly what kind of application it is. It's not showing anything. It could be a .NET application, it could be a Java application, it could be anything, right? So this is just, I'm considering that just one application is deployed on this application server. I can give it a name. Let's say I'm considering Java application because we are talking about Weblogic, and Weblogic is a Java compliant application server into the market. I should say leading Java compliant application server. So I will say like this is a Flipkart.war application which is deployed over both of the nodes. Okay. So typically what is happening with this, when you hit the request movement section, you are the user sitting here. The request hits to hardware load balancer. Okay. So this hardware load balancer is having the pool configured, which routes the request back to Apache. Then Apache is having one plugin configured over here, which routes the request to the cluster or individual managed server. We will talk about these terms because these are more specific to Weblogic. Just consider that the architecture, that how it is going there. Okay, so this plugin routes the request to application servers who are the backend, and same way this this plugin also routes the request to obviously this will go only one of the node, but I'm just giving you example because we are discussing about the high availability case here. And then again, this could be a rack, real application cluster of the database. Again, we can have the requests load balance from backend. Okay, so the request will pass through some ONS or something like that. What should I take? I can take this one. Okay, so it will pass through the other backend from here, same way like this. So again, so what you feel like, how many things are involved here? Okay, so we have this one hardware load balancer, we have this reverse proxy tier, we have this application server layer, then we have this the backend database, because my request obviously will be going to some database for dynamic contents, specifically fetching some reports or data, I mean, which has which user, but this is something like you have these images, so obviously these will be kept onto the front end itself, because in order to achieve the right performance, the images and all those things has to be on the front end. So in terms of web hosting, very first layer will hold all of them, and this the backend business logic, backend layer is just to hold your business logic. And obviously the database has to be more secure reason, so it is at the last, in the request that you see, it is at the end. So obviously why I said the entire architecture, you could imagine now when you were during you think about 80s time, there used to be two standalone app machines, machine A, example, okay, which used to talk to a machine B, which used to have the database on it usually, and it used to be usually a client. Okay, there were, what kind of challenges were there? Can you just think of it? What challenges were there? Yes, there were challenges, like very first challenge was there was no failover mechanism or fault tolerance. If machine B goes down, machine A cannot access things, right? Application is completely down. What else? Code complexity. Okay, how you can say the code complexity and the software dependency. Okay, so how code complexity and software dependency? Usually the application derived at the time or developed at that time was the standalone application. Okay, so what they were doing, the developers doing right now at that time, they then when something starts, they do not know about the pros and cons, right? But gradually it starts improving. So if you think about that, the developer used to write down the code in such a manner where they were hard coding things into the client code itself. I mean, into the code itself, you should say. Hard coding the things, I mean, if you need the database connectivity, if you want to attain a database connectivity, so what you need for the database connectivity, right? Obviously, you will need the host details, port details, driver details, and many more things in order to achieve, like username and password, and many more things are needed, right? Because without that you cannot. And obviously the dependent database jar file to be placed on the client. It was a trouble at that time. I mean, older days I'm talking about. So what the developers started thinking about, can't we take out these hard coded things out of the code? Can't we make our code loosely coupled? Yes. So they started developing things like the application server came into the picture just because of that, I should say, in order to achieve the high availability, scalability, and obviously the failover. Okay, so Again, application server consists of two containers. What's a web container? And I should say every standard application server contains these two containers, web container and the business logic container, or you can say application container. Okay. So web container, because we are talking about the Java-based application server. So web container is meant to deal with the servlet and JSP requests. Okay. Application server is something that deals with your business logic. It means it will be the code which will be accessed via web container. It won't be a direct call. It will be intercepted by these servlet and JSP requests. So these will be basically EJBs, which is called as the enterprise Java beans. So coming to my picture back, so basically the enterprise Java bean or the business logic is kept here. Even the var file is also kept here, but the request which is hitting to a var file, or you can say the user request, which will access the business logic, will pass through the web container. Then only it will reach out to the application container. So again, if you look at this architecture, we have two nodes for for Apache to Weblogic to database. Obviously, you can understand like what is happening here. This is just to achieve the high availability. You can say fault tolerance, and you can say this is kind of a scalability as well. So how come this is, we can say that scalability. Today my application needs, it is hitting maybe 1,000 users per second. Based upon the load, I might need just 2 nodes. Okay. So let's say coming to Christmas, during that time, you might have the load maybe 5,000 users, concurrent users per second, like that. In that case, I need to improve in terms of the setup that I have. I might need to increase the one managed server or one application server node, onto this backend. I also need to increase one Apache node because it won't be able to handle at 5 times load. We need to think about that. So basically, this is about scalability. You can increase or decrease. You can shut down the managed servers if you don't want the need. You don't need the you don't have that much load. You can start up the managed server, or you can create additional managed servers in order to occupy more load. So this is just about the entire architecture, or you can say this is not just about the WebLogic. Any application server in whosoever is following the entire architecture into the enterprise. Obviously, the entire architecture is needed into the enterprise because just think about the banking application. Think about any other telecom domain applications. You cannot delay, you cannot tolerate the shutdowns or hiccups within your application. They will lose the business, right? So that's what the entire architecture came into the picture. If you just conquer the same, why WebLogic, why JBoss, why WebSphere, or any other application server that you see into the market came into the picture. So those are the leading brands at their place. WebLogic is one of the popular brand because it used to be BA earlier, and gradually in 2007-06, Oracle taken over the WebLogic. Okay, so that's Oracle policy because it was just having that OC4J at that time, and it was not that much good application server. They taken over this VA WebLogic server. Then they started buying other products as well. I mean, they taken over BI. You know, would have heard about SOA. It used to be Beeple earlier, which became, you know, SOA later. You would have heard about ESB, which is now known as the OSB, Oracle Service Bus. It used to be BA Aqualogic Service Bus. Okay, so the way, you know, the Oracle keep buying the products, and they merged all of them into the you know, one suite, you can say, or what should I say exactly the term? They build a suite which is called as the Oracle Fusion Middleware Tech Stack. So Oracle Fusion Middleware Tech Stack is nothing but a product set which contains, you know, all of the products that they have, but they bundled it with along with the WebLogic. Okay, so why they did it, actually, obviously it is a business strategy. So they said, okay, WebLogic is my core platform, and in order to run any of these products, the WebLogic will be needed. Okay, so that's what they did. So nowadays, if I talk about, if we talk about this Oracle Fusion Middleware WebLogic 12c, it's nothing but it's like the same WebLogic server. What they have done there, they mandate, they have, you know, they made it must that you should have WebLogic server. And which WebLogic server? Fusion Middleware Infrastructure. Install. Okay, so this is kind of the core WebLogic product. You can think of like about SOA and OSB. These are bigger Java applications which are deployed on top of the WebLogic server. So this is a platform. WebLogic is a platform which is needed in order to run all of the other Oracle Fusion Middleware products. So let me show you how it looks like. You just take a look to this. This is a sample WebLogic domain console that I'm showing you. And in fact, this is a SOA domain. I created the one. They also offer, you know, this additional EM portlet application in order to manage and monitor the Fusion Middleware products. Okay, you can stop the things from here. You can monitor well. A lot of things are there. Okay, and this is again, as usual, the WebLogic server. So even though this is a SOA domain, but the WebLogic is still there, right? So that is something that, you know, that the Oracle is doing nowadays. So Oracle Fusion Middleware is, you know, you can say it's a leading business innovation platform, you know, for the enterprise and the cloud. It enables the enterprises to create and run agile, intelligent business applications while maximizing efficiency through full utilization of the modern hardware. Okay, so coming back to just a second. Okay, so where I was just here. I told you, like, we have for any application server, we must need this two containers, right? So we have these two containers, and what else an application server must offer? An application server must offer these services. Okay, What all kind of services it must offer? It must offer the see, when you have an application, obviously you need the database connectivity, right? You need the database connectivity, so an application server must provide you the connectivity. Since it is a Java application server, they use JDBC API in order to connect to a database. I will tell you how it's being done, what WebLogic plays role as a, what WebLogic plays role between application server and the database. Okay, we obviously, the application might be having the messaging, right? So what we need for messaging, we need the JMS API, Java messaging services. Okay, what in case like we want to perform some sort of lookups? Okay, I want to look up other services. So for that, what we have the JDI API, Java naming directory interfaces. Okay, all these are the APIs. These are not the APIs built by someone else. I mean, these are standard Sun API. These are, so developers can use these APIs and they can customize their code, and that code will be deployed onto the WebLogic. Okay, a lot of their JMX is there, Java authentication authorization services there, JAX RPC there, web services. Okay, Java transaction API is there. So these are the services. Usually an application will be for sure needing these services, right? Without that, I mean, what they are going to achieve? Nothing. Obviously, we want to manage the transactions, so we have we have the JTA for that. We want to communicate to, we need sort of interoperability between other applications like .NET or any other applications. So we need web services. Yes, our application server, is compliant to web services. We can write down. We have, so these are, a couple of services, and even many more are there. These services has to be offered by any application server, as I said, because there is no use of an application server. So how WebLogic is playing that role here? So as I said, in 80s, communication between client and server, it was, there is no way dealing with it. So the implementation of these services was done within the code itself by the developers while, writing down the client. Okay, so that's why this, middle tier, or you can say the WebLogic, is introduced in between, right? So now what you can do, you can configure these services, or you can configure these modules, or you can short part of the you can configure these modules onto the WebLogic itself, because it consumes a lot of time to develop these modules if developer is going to do that within their code. And there will not be any standard as well, because they have their own, everyone has their own mindset. They might have different logic implementing these things, right? So there will not be any standard. So what WebLogic is doing, again, it is providing you a standard as well to connect to a database, to connect to a messaging system, to perform lookups, and many things, right? So what does mean by it? If I come to this is my WebLogic application server admin console. Don't go on the terms like admin console, manage servers. We will talk about them. That's pretty fine. Just try to understand the logic, because if you know, I know people who are having 5 or 6 years of experience on WebLogic, but they don't know why we use the data source. Okay, the reason they are not able to figure out the problems when they do the troubleshooting, they don't know why JMS is needed. Okay, so that visualization is important before knowing, okay, so JMS module, okay, queue, topic, and all this. You must know the concepts very fast, right? Okay, so I was just giving an example of the database connectivity, right? So it is kind of a ready-made software plugin, or you can say the module, which is available onto the WebLogic administration console, where you can specify things about the database connectivity, which which the developer was going to write down within their code, right? So come to this section for a while and you think about, come to this section, see a lot of data sources here. These are related to SOA. So don't go on that. We can create our own data source as well. Okay, so you just take a look to one of them. The connection pool setting is here. This is my database host name because I'm using my machine itself, so that's why the local host service name, the port on which the database is running, the driver class. Okay, driver type, which user that you want to connect through, password, and a lot many things are there, right? So how exactly you see that this overall implementation was supposed to be written within the code by the application developer if you have been there during 8 days, right? So now it is a standard as well, right? Because every time this is sort of UI. This UI is generated by some coding, right? That's done one time. Every time you come to the Weblogic admin console, you will see the same UI, means the backend will be the same, right? Only things that you are going to specify is the these values. You can say, if you just talk about in terms of shell scripts, you are just passing the command line arguments, right? So so these things are, kind of standardized. Everyone need not to write down their own code in order to achieve this, the database connectivity and waste time, writing down code for 20-30 days, fixing the bugs. So that's why you see that what is this? JDBC is again a service database. It is providing you the database connectivity by specifying the simple things that what is expected as per the standard: the database host name, port name, and service name, the driver type, whether it is a XA or it is a non-XA, the username through which you want to connect to the, you want to establish the connectivity between the database, and so it's so easy. Same way, if you want to achieve the messaging, right? So you have the JMS servers. These are you can just take a look to them. These are the service provider, messaging service providers, you can say, which has the modules inside it. Modules are not here actually. Okay, under that you will see what all queues and topics are configured, right? You see the connection factory, uniform distributed. These are the default queues and topics created by the SOA, because this is the SOA domain. Don't worry about that. So these are the queue names. Again, just think about, like, if the developer is going to develop this module, how much time he is going to take? I don't know, man. It will take a very long time. So that's what the benefit of having an application server nowadays, because they have the standard approach to connect to a database, to connect to a messaging system, to connect to a lookup service, to provide a ready-made login module for the application server. What else it does for you? Obviously, I didn't speak about so far the actual thing. Any application server is just meant for deployment of the application server. Applications, okay? Deployment of application. Right? So Weblogic server is a platform where you deploy the applications. When I say the deploy the applications, you are making this available to external world. Okay. What you do the web hosting, right? So you deploy the application, you put that into the Apache web container, and you start accessing, since the service is running, and you start accessing the index.html or the very first welcome page. What you see that page is up, right? So same way, you deploy the applications onto the application server, okay, so that you can access these specific things, a specific URL or specific functionality of the application. So that specific functionality could be any of these services, okay. And what else Weblogic does apart from this? It is giving you, this nice UI. You can manage, administer, monitor things from here itself. They are also giving this additional EM portlet application, EM console, which is called as the EM console. From here, you can administer, start, stop, configure things. Okay, so that's what, like, I mean, a lot of good features here. And when it comes to the Oracle Fusion middleware, obviously nothing is special except these are the bigger application components, okay, which needs few things in database. So for that, we create the schemas in advance before we are going to create the domain, okay. But core is again the WebLogic administration. So any person who is a SOA administrator, any person who is a BI administrator, OSB administrator, he is going to have, he must have some very sound knowledge of the WebLogic, because 50-60% things are just covered, troubleshooting things and all those things are related to WebLogic itself. Remaining 40% administration is the SOA or any other component, Oracle Fusion middleware component that you are using. So this is like, how I feel I explain things to you. I could have gone through the standard documentations like we have here. I could have read through a lot of PPTs, and I don't like that actually. I use bare simple language which give you the right understanding of the topic that I'm talking about. It is bare English. I mean, I should not, it is not up to the mark English, I should say, but it is bare because bare is needed. Everyone can understand, right? So try to understand. I mean, I can give you a couple of more examples or things how to do that. Maybe next session I will just let you know. And the topics that we will cover is here. I mean, so this is the course content that we will cover. History of the Oracle WebLogic server. Again, this is nothing but started in 1998 with 3 guys, and they started doing well there, and gradually they started improving it on, starting from WebLogic 2.3.1 till 8.1. You can just take a look history. They given it on wiki as well. It was 1997, which was the earlier version of Tenga. 3.0, 3.1, 4, and the most stable release that they gave was in 8.1 July 2003, which sustained till 2007. And at that time, they also started, they kept releasing the new versions. They started improving. They kept on doing improvements to the containers, and they gave the most stable release of the WebLogic server in Fab 2026, Fab 26, 2012. And right now we are here with 12.2.13, which is basically the cloud release from here. Since 2011 till the time we have these many releases, and this was headache for them, um, because for every platform, Solaris, they had the different binary. For the product installation for Linux, they had the different. Since every operating system is releasing the patches, every quarter, it was really cumbersome for them to provide fixes for every installer that they were releasing. So they made it the generic installer, the Java-based installer. So coming back to our course content, so we'll see how to do the installations, various modes of installation, GUI, silent. So why we need the silent installation of the product? Because we don't want the user intervention. Okay, we have the silent.xml files where you can specify the home directories, Java home, WebLogic home. what you want to attain, where you want to perform this installation, and then you can you can automate the things. It doesn't require any user intervention. While the graphical user interface needs the user intervention, like it presents a UI, you specify the details, say next, 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 and then we will learn about the Oracle WebLogic server directory structure. Directory structure in the sense, let's just take a look. This is my domain. So this domain directory structure we'll discuss about. What else we'll discuss about? I'll explain like what is the meaning of all these directories, because this is the installation binary, and the one I was showing you earlier was the domain directory. Why we create a domain? We create a domain because domain is a logical entity. It will contain the admin server, managed servers, and we will deploy the applications to managed servers or clusters, and then we will configure the JDBC, JMS, all those services we will configure there, and the application will be used there. Okay. So configuring a domain is again configuring the elements of the domain, using the domains in enterprise. The same thing that I'm talking about. Okay. Then how to create the templates of the domain. That why we create the templates, that can be used as a backup later time, or in order to I mean, you have some XYZ functionalities today. Tomorrow you may need that. To extend that, you can use the template and untar that, and then create additional things there. Like I was talking about the scalability, right? If you don't have, your recent setup had made many changes, you can use the older template and make changes there. Okay. Using administration console and WLST. Obviously, being as a WebLogic administrator, you will require to configure the resources in the sense, the clusters, servers, queues and topics for the JMS, security things as well. Come to the security things. What you have there, you have the users, groups. What I have right now, I have just WebLogic user. You can configure the roles and policies for specific application components like SOA, OSB. Okay. What else you can do? Where is my course content? Yeah. So what else you can do? You can configuring managed servers. These are your actual workhorses where you will deploy the applications. I will tell you, how we can configure the managed servers from the admin console, from the WLST, how we can start, stop, configuring node managers, right? How we can, so node manager is, just to give you an overview, it is a standalone Java utility. Nowadays, it is coming along within the domain directory itself. You can use that as a to control the managed servers, right? From the administration console, it is a client which keeps on checking my managed server is up or not up, or you can control it by, okay. We will see how we can view the logs. We will see deployment concepts, how we'll deploy the applications, how to deploy the Java enterprise applications, EARs, advanced deployments. If you want to automate your deployment, we can have the advanced deployment things, database connectivity, messaging, clustering, and security. How, again, all those topics that we have, we will cover that. If you have any specific question, you can ask me right now.